I had again issues with the stream, and yeah, now I had to restart my PC. There were some hidden updates. I don't know why it updated them. It updated some Windows stuff. Very strange. So Bitcoin went to 39.2, and it seems it is getting rejected from this box. I'll wait a little bit because I think it might push a little bit further. If it goes below the Tenkan Sen, I believe then we will have some turnaround, some downside in Bitcoin. But this is right now the support. If we break it again to the downside, it would be bearish. For now, okay, let's see. Yeah, 30-minute. Everything depends on the money flow. If the money flow keeps increasing, we'll pump. But if we go down from here, if this is the maximum, probably we go to 36 or 35k. There is some more juice on the 3 hour, but yeah, we'll see. On the daily, it's looking bullish, but I think there is some more. So, okay. I'll be watching the 5-minute money flow and build up. For now we are too high to do anything here, and I don't want to short because there might be a bullish break to the upside soon. Seeing how everyone is negative on Twitter. You see, everyone is bearish, so bearish that Bitcoin goes to 15k, but this might be a fantasy, a sentiment fantasy. Seeing the volume delta and the top traders leverage delta, it's quite positive. So I think there is more upside. This is turning around. We have to pump in the money flow. Right now we have divergences. Yeah, a little slim money flow, about 10, 15, not too much. Okay, let's see this one.
So let me show you exactly what has happened in the last year. Gas has risen to $3.32 a gallon. Mortgage rates were about 3. The 30-year mortgage interest rate now has risen to 4.6, and that's without the Fed raising the rate, which they say they're going to do twice or 3 times this year. That is just the banks getting greedy. Second quarter GDP growth predicted to be 2.3%. So you know last year's a year ago, it was projected at 30%. Our growth was 33.1% in the third quarter under Trump. It is now 2.3. Inflation is 7% and rising. Now we say that we have 3.5% unemployment. Does that seem right to you? Do we really only have 3.5% employment? Because that's almost full employment. That means everybody who's looking for a job has a job. And for the very first time, I can say that's true and yet completely misleading. There are so many jobs available right now, but the government is incentivizing people to stay home. So now you might be at full employment, but you don't have people working. You're paying them to stay home. How many fast food restaurants have you been to? How many places have you been to? And they either don't have it, they're closed, they're waiting, they're only open certain hours because they just don't have the people. Oil has now hit an 8-year high. We're talking about hitting oil prices of $150 a barrel. I just want you to know, 2008, the collapse happened at $130 a barrel. That was the final straw. We are now showing that you are paying 49% more for gas, 37% more for used cars, 6% more in electricity, 6% more for food. Building supplies. You want to know why houses are so expensive? Lumber. Do you remember the beginning and everybody was talking about lumber? How expensive? I just want one sheet of plywood. I can't get a sheet of plywood. Can't get a sheet of plywood. Been waiting on a list for 2 months. Can't get a sheet of plywood. The price of lumber, not since the beginning of the pandemic, but since September, has risen 45%. That is the highest gain since 1947. And they're telling you that everything is fine. If you look at the way we used to calculate, for instance, unemployment, we're at 3.5. But why does that feel wrong? Because in 1995, I think, they changed the way we calculate unemployment. And what they did is they said, are there so many people discouraged that they've just given up looking for work? Because that's not fair to the government to point out those numbers too. So are they just given up because they're so discouraged? If you calculate it the way we did in 1993 and before that, before we took the discouragement out, our unemployment rate would be 24.5. 24.5. The Great Depression was about 30% unemployment. We're at 24.5. The difference is they're not discouraged, they're encouraged not to work. So now everybody's saying, what's causing inflation? What's causing inflation? Oh, gee, I don't know. I don't know. We're doing everything wrong. It's like we've woken up in a parallel universe. The multiverse where everything that you're supposed to do, you do the opposite. We have to wake our friends and neighbors up, and we'll only do it with kindness and facts. But even Democrats will know, except for the real diehard, never gonna wake up to anything Democrats. They know something is not right. We told you that the Great Reset is the plan. The news on the Great Reset is breathtaking today. And the White House announced yesterday that they are going to get rid of Bitcoin and all cryptocurrency. It's got to go. It's got to go. IMF is going the same way. Well, why? Let me give you some numbers that have just been FOIA'd and released this week. Why this is not the number one story in the world, I don't know. But I haven't seen this reported anywhere. The Fed has a 2-year waiting period on information. So they can't tell you. You can't ask, and they can't tell you 2 years. They do something, and then you have to wait 2 years to say, what did you just do? Okay? Then it has to be FOIA'd. Well, 2 years, 2012, 2 years went by after 2008 to 2010, and they were FOIA'd. Tell us what you did. Well, they fought it, and they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was, the Fed said, we need 10 years. We need 10 years. It's very sensitive, 10 years. 10 years are up, so it's been FOIA'd. Let me give you what they did. Now, here's what they said they did. You remember the Tea Party started with TARP because we were so outraged that it was $787 billion. We were so outraged, almost $1 trillion to bail out these banks. Are you kidding me? I want you to remember that. $787 billion to bail out TARP. Less than $1 trillion, the bailout for all of the banks. And we said, what are you doing? How could we possibly do that? Then the stimulus package, the Reinvestment Act, was $750 billion. So $1 trillion, what, 6? $1 trillion 5. That's what they said they spent. Then the Fed said, we have to, purchase things like mortgage bonds. So we're just adding money, but it's on our books. We're just going to print and digitize some money, and we're just going to buy some stuff, okay, from the banks. So they already had almost $1 trillion from us, the taxpayer, and then the Fed said, we're going to do $3.5 trillion to the banks. Okay, that's what they told us. Small problem with those official numbers. They're complete and total bullcrap. Levy Economics Institute is the one that got the FOIA, and they have the findings. And let me give you the truth of what the Fed did. Between 2008 and 2010, the Fed bailed out the banks. Now, they said they'd give $3.5 trillion. Well, Citigroup, it's almost nationalizing Citigroup. Citigroup got $2.5 trillion. Morgan Stanley got $2 trillion. Merrill Lynch got $1.9 trillion. Bank of America got $1.3 trillion. But that's not all. We gave billions to the Bank of Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, the UK, France, Belgium. We gave $3.7 trillion to Japan, $1.4 trillion to the UK, $1.3 trillion to Germany. We bailed the world out to the tune. You want to know why they needed 10 years? To the tune of $29 trillion. They digitized $29 trillion and didn't tell you a damn thing about it. And they gave it to people all over the world. $3.7 trillion to Japan, to the UK, to Germany, separately. 1.4 to UK, 1.3 to Germany. Now, we're trying to figure out why inflation is going through the roof. 1.4 to the UK, they're now reporting the highest inflation in 30 years. 1.3 million to Germany. The producer price inflation jumped in Germany 24.2%, the highest since World War II. You remember my prediction in 2010 when I was questioning this, and I asked, is any of this money going overseas? Of course, that was insane to even ask. The reason why I asked is because if we inflate our money, the rest of the world will be hit first with inflation much worse than ours. Much worse than ours. And these cowards all across the world who are politicians won't have the strength or moral character to say, well, I was involved. I politicked for that money. And I wanted that money over here, and America was giving it to us, and so we took it. They're not going to say that. They're going to say America inflated their money, and we have that money as our gold. We have that as our reserve currency. They, because of their lavish lifestyle and living it up, they just printed all of this money, and now we're all screwed. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words, and it's going to happen faster than you think, because there's more news. It's not just the 30 trillion that we know about. It's now verified through FOIA. We can show you the numbers. That's a fact. But that's ancient history. Do you remember when they started giving money in 2019, right before, like 3 months before the pandemic? And I said at the time, there's a crash coming. Something is happening. This is not normal, and we couldn't get anyone to comment on it. No one would say a word. No economist could explain what the banks were doing. And I said, this is the biggest robbery of all time, the biggest redistribution of wealth. We are going to find out. Well, let me tell you in 60 seconds what they did. Now, we're going to have to probably wait 10 years for verification of this. But let me just take them at their word and do the math. If you think $30 trillion is outrageous, you haven't seen anything yet. So do you remember back in 2019, something started with the banks, and they started giving them emergency cash because there was some kind of sort of fluctuation, and we couldn't figure it out. No economist could. I mean, literally leading economists on CNBC and everything else, they were talking about it, but not a big deal. But they were talking about it, and they were like, we don't know what this is, okay? And I said, they are bailing out the banks. They are transferring wealth, and they're doing it on an epic scale. And it started at $50 billion a day. They were making available, any bank that needed it could get $50 billion to loan overnight, and then you'd pay it back the next day. Then it became, the first night there was such demand, it quickly went up to $150 billion every single night. And you didn't have to pay it back right away. First it was right away, then it was 3 days, then it was a couple of weeks, and then it was, I think, 3 months, and then it became kind of like, do you ever have to pay this back? Then we went into the pandemic. April of 2020, they began issuing loans $1 trillion per week. Officials tell me most likely they don't have to ever pay that back. All these loans, they're not actually getting, nobody's getting the money back. Okay, $1 trillion a week. We know that to be a fact. Now, because of the secrecy of the Fed, we can't verify what I'm going to do, but let's do the math. And this would be insane. I would have never done this if we hadn't have gotten the official numbers from the Fed of what they did in 2008 to 2010, where they digitized $30 trillion and then lied to us and said it was only $5. $30 trillion. That's a fact. The fact is, in April, they said they were going to continue this loan to all of the banks at $1 trillion a week. Well, it's been 95 weeks. That would equate to $95 trillion plus the 30. Transitory? Even at 30, transitory inflation? You cannot believe any of these people in Washington. What this means is your children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren are on the hook for trillions of dollars you never got because they went to banks and banks all over the world. We have no idea where this money is going because they won't answer the question. This is why you're seeing today. But what, 2 days ago, IMF came to El Salvador and said, stop using Bitcoin. Can't use Bitcoin. They're trying to stop all Bitcoin. Yesterday, the Biden administration came out and said cryptocurrency has got to stop. We're going to regulate. Basically, we're going to regulate these things to death. Okay, what's your plan? Your plan is a Fed coin, because this money is going to be shown to be completely worthless soon. Please look at assets. Please look at assets. There's a reason the Great Reset and this information is being suppressed everywhere.
I'm drinking wine and I see how the price is so bullish. I cannot even believe I am seeing Bitcoin. It was rejected one, two, three times and still holding. It seems that it will break this 39k. Probably we're going much higher. Just seeing the price action. Yeah, the 30-minute is has a red dot. I wouldn't venture into long right now. I just want to see how the things are shaping up, because the money flow is lower here than this high. And there is some divergence here. On these peaks there is clear divergence, bearish divergence. Yeah, we'll see how things shape up here, but it has been strong, quite strong. Almost hit our target. Well, it should be, let's say, from about here. One time, second time. Bitcoin is very resilient today. In the past week, there is a bearish divergence. I don't want to go on a walk now, although we have some signal, but it's on the 5 minute. This is showing red. Drink some more wine.